Well, that's a step in the right direction.
What's up, everybody? We're back again. It's that time of the week. It's time to break down another big movie. And this week, we had the pleasure of watching Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. I think this is definitely, you have Apocalypse Now. That has to be the most wild Vietnam War story. And then you have Full Metal Jacket. And I'm a big Apocalypse Now fan, like huge. I love the movie so much. And I don't think both of these movies are so different. There really isn't very much in common there at all. But there's so many different things to talk about with this. And, us three, we can't just do it justice on our own. And today I actually have a really big panel of great guests. So I'm very pleased to announce all of our friends that have joined us today, starting with our good old friend, Kyle Corwith, back from the dead. We missed you, buddy. It's good to have you back.
Hey, Kyle, nice to meet you.
What the hell happened to me? Hey, dude.
You were doing great on your own channel. You're doing great. I'm glad we were able to get you back on our stream, though. So,
Kyle, I think this is the first stream we've done together. So, hi, I'm Particular Critic. Nice to meet you.
Just Particular? That's your preferred?
Particular Critic.
But in terms, okay, so you want the full.
Those are his preferred pronouns.
Yeah. Okay.
Next up, we also have another friend. Another friend. I met. Geez, how long did I meet this guy? I met Cam a few months ago at a convention, and ever since then I've been following his YouTube journey, and I love how up to date this guy is on YouTube. He alerts me of every exciting little thing that's happening in the theaters, in the studios. So I had to get him on here. So this is his introduction into our stream here. Cam, the movie man, good to see you, buddy. Glad we were able to host you here for your live debut on the channel. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited for this chat.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite shorts you made was just discussing all of the September masterpieces from the Regal theaters. I actually went back and watched that little short like 10 times because it got me so excited for what was going on. So that was all because of you, buddy.
Man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And then of course we also have another favorite of ours, World War Joe is back. Good to see you, man. Thanks for joining us.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me on here.
Always a pleasure. And then a new face to the channel, who I've also had the pleasure of streaming with before on Lance's channel. Had a great talk with him. He's the inside man. He knows what's going on behind the scenes, and he's actually had some experience with Full Metal Jacket. So I'm really excited to hear his perspective. How you doing, inside man? It's good to see you, buddy.
I'm very, very good. Especially, looking at the size of this panel and these guys, I'm sure we're going to have a great time.
Well, yeah, man. What I love about our stream is that we're a group of firsts and fans, right? For quite a few of us, I think this is the first time we've seen this. I know Luke hasn't seen it. I barely saw it once years ago. Ty, he's seen it before. He's a big fan. Cam, have you seen this before? Have you seen Full Metal Jacket?
I've only seen it once, and then I actually gave it a rewatch today, so that'll make it twice.
Nice. Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure, Kyle, you have some pretty good experience with Full Metal Jacket. Is that right?
I don't.
Oh, you don't? This is a first for you.
This is the first time watching it.
Oh, I'm surprised. Wow. Okay. I thought that'd be part of your portfolio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
Surprise.
I know. A happy surprise. I'm glad. This is awesome. And then, Joe, I think you told me a while back that this was one of your favorites. Isn't that right?
It's definitely up there, but I have a really embarrassing quick story to tell about this movie. I actually didn't know there was a second half of it for most of my life. I thought the movie ended when the drill sergeant died.
Yep.
So for
the Sergeant Pyle.
Yep. So most of my life, I didn't even know there was a second part of this movie, and then I watched it like, wow, you could have made this its own movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a major discussion point because for a few of us watching it today, it fell off a little bit towards that second half.
After that second half, like after Sergeant Pyle and all that kind of stuff, I was just disconnected.
Yeah, well, the two, they didn't really blend into each other very well. But, I want to start talking about the first half, of course, because that is, that's what's iconic here. In case people aren't aware about this movie, this, of course, let me put this picture up. This is, Vietnam War story, unlike anything you've really ever seen. The first half of the story, we focus on Drill Sergeant Hartman here and this group of young men that are being trained to be Marine Corpsmen. And it's a pretty brutal demonstration of just how far the shark attack method goes to form all these young men into literal weapons. And I think, we see this side of the story mostly through two different perspectives. We follow the infamous Private Pile, his story, of course, D'Onofrio, and he mostly plays a kind of guy that really has no idea what's going on. He's completely unaware mentally, and he isn't really prepared to tackle any challenge that comes his way. He really seems like he's borderline possibly disabled, or it may just be the fact that he has no idea where he is or why he got into this mess. But his character perfectly combats Drill Sergeant Hartman well, because Hartman doesn't take BS from anybody.
No,
and this, the conflict in this first half mostly lies between these two characters, because they're polar opposites. They're really nothing alike, and they create for interesting tension right off the bat. So I'm wondering what you guys think about this character, Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. Did you think he came off more as like a villain, as like a necessary force, a guiding mentor? What do you think his character situation was?
I would say a little bit of both, though. Just that tough love throughout the entire movie, and I was kind of hoping that maybe towards the end, Pyle would start impressing him, and they'd be like, "Oh wow, you're finally listening," and then the whole group rallies behind him, and they have a big happy ending. But no, it did not turn out like that at all.
Definitely no happy ending to that story. That's for sure.
I think
I
that,
always. Sorry, I beg your pardon. No,
you're
please,
good.
please go ahead. Oh,
No, you go. You go first. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I think he was kind of a paternal figure, really. I think I can see that he does have a degree of affection for them, because he knows, partially because that's his job, but I think he knows what these men are going to be sent off to do. He knows that almost or most of them are definitely not going to come back. So he cannot establish any form of real relationship with them. He just has to do his job, get them up to speed on everything they need to do, and get them into a mindset. But it's partly the discipline side of things, but I do think that he does have an affection for them, as I'm sure most gunnery sergeants actually do, when they're training these young recruits. But I kind of saw him as a little bit of a father figure who maybe was was perhaps a little harsh at times, but nonetheless, they need him. There is a necessity for him. They need him more than they think they need him.
That's interesting hearing you believe him to be a father figure, because most of that story in the beginning, we kind of we almost look down on his character, because he just constantly berates the poor guy that really has no clue, and he's kind of portrayed as a victim the whole time. So you can either love Private Pyle or you can hate him. So I liked hearing that you thought of him more as like a father figure, because I think he was just doing his job. And, for everybody else, he wasn't particularly that much of a pain. If Pyle would have just picked up the slack and did what he was actually saying and ordering a lot of the time, I don't think we would perceive him as this grueling villain that we're supposed to be that way. So that's interesting.
Could you get kicked out of boot camp?
A little bit different than your aspect. I think that Sergeant Pyle was kind of just he was the person that was able to kind of just be like sought out as the worst Marine out of the whole group. Like, as we saw like in the beginning of the movie, like Sergeant Pyle, he's like kind of bigger. He's a bigger build. He's not as lean as these other characters like Joker and that kind of stuff. And like, we really see that as a big deal, because Sergeant Pyle is single-handedly being embarrassed by this sergeant, whereas everybody else is doing completely fine. Exactly what like Box Office Brawler was saying. Like, I feel like he's kind of finding the one person that he can like sort out to make their life a living hell. and I think he did that. I think that's the character like expression that we get from Sergeant Pyle is like he's going through so much like pain, where else none of the inmates or none of the soldiers are going through anything more than he is. He's getting beat with soap. He's being like embarrassed by everybody. Like,
poor guy has no respect the whole
he has
sequence. He's
zero
on screen.
respect.
He doesn't get any
he kind of
respect.
earned it when he's sneaking donuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that just adds to it. Like this like bigger dude who's not like has no idea what's going on, and he's kind of like sneaking donuts and kind of thing. Like when I watched this, like I kind of thought of this dude as like Eric Cartman from South Park, like just a big dude who has no interest about eating except eating food and like, yeah.
Sounds like me.
Mm-hmm.
But can you get kicked out of boot camp?
You said
Sorry,
what?
What'd you say, Joe? You're a little muffled.
Can you guys hear me at all?
We can hear you now.
You sound like you're in a tunnel, like a train.
Sorry. I'll try to talk
It's all right.
into it.
You're good. You're good, man.
But
You got any thoughts?
Well, his question was, can you get kicked out of boot camp? Yep, absolutely. Absolutely, you can. And he should have. He was physically inadequate, and I think he was mentally handicapped. So these are classifications that would get someone kicked out.
I think that he definitely had some sort of like autism or Asperger's or something like that, because he was so unable to do the most basic things. Like when we rewatched the movie tonight, I was like, they're trying to do the it's that one exercise where they go up the like little like slats.
The beams.
Yeah,
I have a
beams
picture of
and
that
have to
somewhere.
go over.
Yeah.
Yeah, this exactly. He's like physically struggling just to get over the like top beam. Like that should not be very hard.
Well, I
You
think
can
that's
tell
like a
that he is
fear
an
factor.
irrational fear in the character about doing this. And when I was watching the movie with my wife, she mentioned how he may have a fear of heights, which is a possibility, but never verbally conveyed.
But I feel like even though that might be some sort of an excuse or anything, like you're in the Marine Corps training. Like if you're here, you need to be putting in your top, like you need to be putting in your best effort. And like you said, like if they can't put in their best effort, or if they're mentally handicapped or like any of that things, like they should be taken out of the military. They should not have a position in this military whatsoever, because that's not.
I mean, I never really saw Pyle as being handicapped in any way. To be perfectly honest, I always saw him as being somebody who just wasn't cut out to be a Marine. That he wasn't cut out for being drafted. And quite interesting, just a minor little sort of factoid, that when Vincent D'Onofrio had actually was shooting that scene there, he kind of jumped off of something. I think he just jumped over managed to sort of get over the wall. I think the first time he gets over the wall, he lands, and he actually twisted his knee, and he ripped all the tendons and muscles, and and he kind of displaced his kneecap. And I think it was on I think that was actually his first day. But someone's Alexa alarm's going off there.
Sorry, that was my alarm going off.
He's supposed to be going to bed.
Yeah,
that time.
But yeah, so yeah, that was so he spent quite some time with his legs strapped up.
Wow.
And he was in some pretty bad pain for a good couple of weeks.
Poor Pyle.
Pretty
This is
incredible.
definitely this has got to be his like most memorable role. I remember I saw him at a convention recently, and when I look at him, I was trying to see Kingpin, but I couldn't help. But I just saw Private Pyle.
Yeah,
I would want to escape this role, because it's not a very flattering one for him. But
I think he's very proud of it. He's extremely proud of it. I think because he came from the Lee Strasberg School of Acting, where they were very method. So he really did, gain some weight for this role. He really worked hard. And it was Matthew Modine who recommended him because they hadn't cast. I think Pyle was the only one that wasn't cast at the time. So Matthew Modine, after being in the UK, had said to Stanley Kubrick, look, I know this guy that might suit this role. And that was how he got cast, through recommendation.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I mean, was this like his first big role then?
Yeah, it was his first big role. He'd done a few small things, mainly theatre, I believe. But he was working as a doorman, at a nightclub.
Wow, that's a pretty big change.
Step up.
Yeah, I'd like to be in one of Stanley Kubrick's films. That would be awesome. It's kind of sad we don't have any real visionary directors like that anymore. I'm getting sick of the claim that Christopher Nolan is that. He's just not that to me.
No, he's not.
No, thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Joe, your audio is much better now.
Thank you. He had a few.
What'd you say, Kyle?
Joe's audio is much better now.
Oh,
Sounds
thank
good.
you. I've been fiddling with this thing the entire time, but I think Nolan
sounded sexy now.
and that's it.
Yeah, we can hear you a lot better, War Joe.
Oh, perfect. Good.
Kyle really likes your voice, Joe. I don't blame him. I do too.
I appreciate voices. Yeah.
Oh, we'll talk after then.
Yeah, there you go. Oh gosh. So we're talking about how immature Private Pyle was through a lot of this, and the question it comes up: does he have a disability? Is he just unfit to be in this position? Why is he actually there? Well, what's odd about it is, right off the bat, he doesn't like completely come off as totally incompetent. I mean, he's a bit of a jokester, I guess. And, he gives Hartman a little bit of lip, but, we seem to follow a further dissension into infancy when Joker comes into the picture and Hartman orders Joker to begin mentoring him into, a soldier, into a weapon. And for whatever reason, once this happens, he becomes increasingly more juvenile. And a few things I noticed right off the bat was he started giving us like totally like mindless blank facial expressions.
The Kubrick stare.
The Kubrick stare. And then we see him, these expressions, I guess the Kubrick stare, he's kind of giving it, and he looks like he's kind of like oohing and ahhing at his mommy. And it was really weird to see that we got that, for whatever reason, that step back. And, he's supposed to be mimicking everything that, Joker's supposed to be doing in these segments, but it really just seems like a baby's looking at his mommy, trying to mimic what she's doing in almost an immature sense. And then, even worse yet, after the whole donut ritual goes on, where he descends into another depth, Joker further goes on in a sequence where he starts dressing him. And then not far after that, we see Private Pyle sucking his thumb as everyone else is punished for his malfeasances. And we further see him staring off into space and completely detaching from the man he was not that long ago. So I'm kind of wondering, why do you guys think that Private Pyle's character descended even further into infancy once he began the mentorship from Joker?
Well, I have a question. Did anyone else think that when he was sucking his thumb with the pants around his ankles, obviously that was told to him to do, but did you also think that him sucking his thumb was a directive as well? Who else thought that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wait, what do you mean?
That's what I thought. When he was sucking his thumb and following after the troop, that was a directive.
Oh,
it wasn't
like they wanted him to do it.
Right. I think they told him to do that,
okay.
but
humiliation
it, yeah.
Well, that's enlightening, because I don't know why he would think to do that in any scenario. I mean, that would just show you that he absolutely has a disability at that point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I think this goes to a point of fantasy, I think, to allow this individual in the military, in the Marines. Granted, I know all these guys are drafted because this is Vietnam. So there's going to be some weeding out and discharges, and yet he's not. So it makes for good drama, but
it does.
And dark comedy.
Very, very dark comedy. But I think that this is a real progression or regression. Whenever we because we have to remember that this training has taken place over a period of quite a few weeks. So obviously there is a time lapse, so we don't have a specific time frame that we're looking at here.
Mhm.
I think it's
We
8
can only
weeks actually.
Yeah, so we can only assume that it's his descent really is a consequence of the perpetual, I suppose we could say, bullying by Sergeant
Yeah.
Hartman, because he is targeting him, and using him as the example of, don't do what Private Bile is doing because this is what you're going to get. But yeah, I just think that his regression is really a consequence of the constant bullying, and he just can't get out of that cycle.
You make a good point. It would have been nice to like have some sort of address as to how much time has passed, because it really seemed like we were jumping a lot. And I don't know off the top of my head how long these boot camps last. Do any of you have an idea of that
I
figure?
believe it's 8 weeks. I'm reading
Jeez.
the IMDb right now.
8 to 9 weeks.
And something I was thinking about while we were watching this was that, these guys don't seem to get any free time whatsoever. They work themselves till the end of the day. They go to
And then-
sleep. They have very little sleep, and then they wake up and they do it all over again. So I think all of us would go kind of mad in that situation. But I just can't imagine we reach the depths that poor Private Pile did in this situation.
Yeah.
I could totally see that, because not only do we have to deal with this for a couple weeks in a row, then you got to go to war. It's like this is the easy part.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Absolutely.
Nice.
I think that I can put a little bit of perspective in this, because I was like in high school, I was about to go to the military. Like I applied for it, and like I ended up not going to that shit because like it's not beneficial towards like my personal person, but like all that kind of stuff, like yeah, like they scare you. They scare the hell out of you. Like their whole goal is to scare you so much that you don't really feel nothing until you go to the like front lines and all that kind of stuff.
And my brother-in-law just finished the academy just for corrections officer, and he's definitely a lot different. And it was
Yeah.
only a few weeks. And like I
Wow.
said, it's not even like going to war and going to Vietnam. It's just being a corrections officer. And he was there for weeks and weeks and weeks. We only talked to him like 5 minutes a day. They only let you use your phone for a few minutes a day. It's hell over there. So I could only imagine military one where they train you to go out there and kill every day. It's got to be hell of intense, man.
Yeah,
Well,
and
as
I didn't
as
even
they-
go.
As they say, train hard, fight easy.
Yep, exactly.
Which is a great saying, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to bounce against that, not from my personal testimony, but from someone I sat down with and I know personally. One of my videos is coming out at on the weekend, and I sat down with an actual veteran who he is very much attached to and very was ingrained, and he was over in Iraq as well, but there are certain types of personalities who are prime for the military, and he is one of them. There's some people that are not. So when the video comes out, you're going to get to know more about him and his personal experience in relation to the movie we're talking about, Warfare. And it's a combination of us talking about the movie, but also his experience and how he sees warfare itself in combat, which is really fascinating. I've never had that in-depth discussion like that before. So
A little bit of a sidetrack. This isn't completely like connected to the Vietnam War or anything, but there was this soldier during World War II, and his name was Walter Filajek, and he is the most like unfazed like military veteran that that has existed in the entire earth. Like he is totally he's totally okay with everything that happened over there, and he like does this amazing like in-depth like depiction of the Vietnam War and all that kind of stuff. It's beautiful.
Is it a movie or something? Is it like a book he
How
wrote?
do you mean?
It's on YouTube, but it's like an hour and 45 minutes, and he just sits in a chair and talks about the Vietnam War and about how he survived and about how like all the things he had to deal with and like all
Okay, I
that
see
kind of
what you.
stuff.
It's a testimony
Yeah,
interview.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But like
Cool.
he's completely unfazed by the PTSD that everybody else has like dealt
Right.
with. He's just recreating that idea like the way that he felt it and the way he
Mhm.
experienced it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, there's
I
some
needed it.
people that will come back with PTSD, and there are some who don't. The man that I sat down with, Chris Dunn, in my video coming up, he doesn't really have any of that
Mm-hmm.
because he's built different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so back to the topic. So we, of course, of the story, we, one of the deciding factors that kind of really screw up poor Pyle's character is when he undergoes that terrible abuse scene when he's in bed, and a lot led up to this point. For people that haven't seen the movie, Pyle, he makes a lot of pretty terrible decisions here. And a lot of this probably comes down to the fact that, he isn't cut out for war. He's not cut out for this whole situation, and that he may have a disability. We don't really know. That's up for us to, I guess, figure out amongst ourselves. But everyone else is fed up with him. They are sick of him because he is no longer the one that's being punished. Hartman, the drill sergeant, he made it clear that, it's not going to be on him now. It's up to the team to give him a real punishment so he understands the gravity of the mistakes he's making. So the way they get back at him, which is particularly cruel, and I didn't think it would bother me as much, but when I ended up seeing it, it really stuck out to me. Was late at night, everyone acts like they're sleeping. It doesn't seem like this is like a whole giant squad long group effort, but he's laying there, he's asleep, and he gets gagged, and everybody stuffs their socks with bars of soap, and they take turns whipping him with it. And geez, I think he probably gets lashed like probably 30 to 50 times. And what I think is particularly impactful about this whole scene is that when all this happens, he's grunting and he's upset, but at the very end, he gives us this really innocent, like, painful gasp, and he's just going owie, 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 ow, ow. And it was so strange, hearing this from a grown man. If this is going to sound weird, but him just kind of wailing in pain, I think is a different response than what he gave us. He kind of gave us this whimper that was almost like a child, like an innocent child. And
Yeah.
I think it kind of, it sends home differently. So I was kind of wondering what you guys thought this situation did for his character. Do you think, how do you think that this affected him going forward? Because right after this, everything really falls apart for him.
This was the turning point. I think this was it. This was the catalyst, really. That he's having, quite a bit of violence perpetrated upon him, and it's going to go only one way, really.
Right.
So,
Drew him off the cliff. Showed him where everyone stands with him. I mean, nobody respects him. Nobody takes him seriously because he's obviously at this point, like you said, wailing like a child. Kind of shows where he probably is mentally and that he's not completely there. He's discouraged from everybody, so he has no like motivation to keep going.
I think that like obviously this is a severe turning point in his like character design and all that kind of stuff. But what I think really like confirmed his like character like switch and his demise and all that kind of stuff was the fact that everybody was beating him with the soap and the socks and whatever, but Sergeant Joker, his like only friend that has been supporting him and helping him, literally dressing him, trying to tell him what is right and wrong. Like, yeah, exactly. Like he plays into this. He hits him over the stomach.
He does
multiple
hesitate,
times.
though. He does hesitate before he does it.
He does hesitate, but at the end of the day, like he follows the rest of his he follows the rest of the people that are doing that. And in that sense, like I don't know.
That I think is, part of the, to show that you are part of that machine, that, you all
Right.
have that same camaraderie, you're part of that unit. So, whatever happens in any situation, you must stick together. I mean,
Exactly.
um,
And I mean,
the
Sergeant Pyle was like screwing over the entire platoon or
yes,
the
he was,
squad or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah. So
yeah.
but on the
And,
other hand, that's not right.
and of course, the United States Marine Corps, their motto is Semper Fidelis, which means faithful or faithfulness,
Mhm.
which means that they're faithful to, you know, their brothers. So they stick together.
But why was Pyle allowed to stay in here? Because obviously, we all know he was a screw up from the beginning. He never looked like he took it seriously. He couldn't do the simplest of physical education or anything like that. Though I'm just wondering, how come they let him stay in as long as they did? How come they didn't just pull him aside and say, "Okay, this ain't
Mhm.
for you, son"?
You need to
So
I feel
leave. Yeah.
I feel
is
like
that
this was a different time. I feel like that's the answer. I don't think they really paid close attention to these sorts
well,
of things. Do you
well,
We're
it
in
think?
was
crucial
it was
war.
Vietnam, so they just kept throwing everyone over there. It seemed, but I mean, is this like a realistic thing? I don't know anyone to serve, so I can't really tell. But is this like a realistic thing that they would actually just keep pushing you through?
Apparently so. Apparently so. I mean, I worked extensively with Captain Dale Dye when I was working on Band of Brothers. It was also the military advisor for Saving Private Ryan and Platoon, etc. And he's a Vietnam vet and retired captain in the United States Marine Corps. And he has said that this is a very, very typical kind of situation that men found themselves in, maybe slightly exaggerated. However, um, these men would have passed a physical, they would have passed their medical to get through to this stage. If they'd failed their medical in any way, shape, or form, they wouldn't have been at this training stage. So they would not be at boot camp in Parris Island.
Hmm.
So they're physically fit enough to get there.
Hmm.
Hmm. What do you think? What do you guys think that his character would have done from this point forward? Because obviously he gets really cold after this. This was really his breaking point here.
Yep.
He loses trust for everyone there. I mean, I think the moment when Joker comes into the mix and the other soldier that's holding him down kind of eggs Joker on. I think Private Pyle. He's aware. He's an aware person. He's not mentally brain dead. I had a feeling that he knew what was happening, and I think he knew Joker was in on this, and that was a deciding factor into possibly vaulting him towards what he may do next. Did you guys expect him to go through with the plan that he did in the final act of this first part of the story?
No, wasn't expecting it at all. Um, I just I wasn't sure what was going to happen at all. I had no expectations of it whatsoever. But it was something that was totally unexpected for me.
Mm.
I wish we would have gotten just if I wish this was the movie. There wasn't anything of them going to Vietnam. We had just another hour of this, and we could have maybe had a dive in more into Pyle, and maybe Joker has that conversation like, "Hey, why are you here?" And then we might get that. Maybe he's trying to impress a family member, or maybe he never was thought he'd be good enough, and maybe he was looking for friends, and that's why he joined up. I think that this movie really could have been enhanced by another hour of just this, and maybe just make Pyle the main character. That we could have gotten more of him in the end.
Well, Joe, didn't you say in the beginning you thought this was the movie, like
I
the
thought
first
it
part?
was, yeah. I was at the end. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, there's more of a movie. Oh, they go to war. It's like after that, I think I would be kind of screwed up if I was involved in beating this dude with soap and then he ends up killing someone else and then kill himself. It's like I don't
Mm.
think I'm ready to go to war after this. I might want to go home.
Mm.
I think we had
Yeah,
a
I'm wondering if this action affected, the characters going forward. I could see how it maybe had an effect on Joker when we see him in Vietnam. I think maybe that's why he unites with the duality of man principle. Maybe that this is like a,
Yeah.
a leading factor implication into that. I don't know. Cam, what do you think?
Yeah, kind of going back to your question, like the first time I watched this movie, um, and like paying attention to Pyle, like yeah, I was expecting to, at some point it fast forwards to when they're in war, and I was expecting to see him be just like, this cold, just brutal killing machine, killing Vietnam people. So it was a total shock and surprise when like his story kind of just ends. Even like I think it was like the night before like their graduation or
Yeah, they're about to
something.
graduate.
And he
Yeah,
just
it was the
like,
night before.
ends everything. I was like, dang, like that was, it was a really good twist. I didn't see it coming, but
I liked hearing your
Yeah,
optimistic side of the story. I did not think he was going to make it out of here. I thought that was the end of him, man. So
Yeah.
it's nice to think you thought he was going to keep going forward. That would have been nice. I think this movie, if we would have followed, man, my gosh, wouldn't that have been great if we followed Private Pyle from start to finish? Now, I mean, it would have, it would have made the ending of this first part of the story maybe less memorable. But, overall, I think it probably would have helped a lot of the film, because the second half of the story, it really loses that, that prominent character that's intriguing enough to get you excited for what's coming next. So,
well, if Pyle had gone to Vietnam, he would have died certainly in the third act sequence.
Or a hero.
Almost certainly got his other men killed as well. So
I would. Did we not see Hacksaw Ridge? He might.
Yeah,
have,
did we see Desmond Dawes carry an obese person, a fat person? I don't think so.
He had the Lord on his side. He would have done it.
But well, you know what? I was wondering. He looked kind of cut towards the end. I was wondering if maybe. I don't know if he was cutting it all throughout the movie. Towards the end, I thought he was starting to look pretty good, but maybe I was just being nice.
No, so the thing with that is, I think, because I noticed that throughout the shoot, and obviously we all know that they shoot movies out of sequence. I think it's a case of he was constantly trying to put on weight, and I was noticing from scene to scene his weight was fluctuating. Yeah, so
that's interesting.
I've heard that.
Oh,
right before the the catastrophe of the bathroom scene, we had like a false hope for the character Private Pyle. He seemed to know everything about the drills and everything. He was seemed like he was the number one, and you think he's gonna be the leader. What was up with that? Did he know all of that from the beginning, or did what's his name, Joker, teach him all of that, and that's what he knew?
No, I mean this is something that he really picked up. It was the only thing that he was any good at.
Right. Okay.
But I must admit, I do see that him, his actions in the bathroom, I think that's his kind of redemption. He kind of redeems himself somewhat there.
Okay.
I love
how does that work?
Inside, man. I love your perspectives. I love it. It's great.
Oh, I want to delve into that. What does that mean? What does this moment mean? He redeems himself. What the hell does that mean?
Hell of a redemption.
I like inside
because he took control of his life. That's probably why.
That's exactly.
Yeah,
right.
he finally snapped and said, "Okay, I'm not gonna let these guys push me around. I'm gonna." I mean, obviously it worked. It was terrible at the end, but yeah, he did become his own man in the end.
He took control of his life by ending it.
Oh,
yeah,
great guys.
Yeah, it's the only thing he could have done. It's the only,
Roll credits.
He redeemed himself.
There was no other future for him, was there? There was nothing.
Right.
I mean, it was
that was his fate.
The only thing he had to look forward to was pain, really. Or worse still, the prospects of going off to war and seeing these things that were gonna affect him, and giving a life that would have been worse than the death that he suffered.
I don't know, man. Look at this face right here. Imagine this guy going to war, completely devoid of a soul at this point.
This would be a friendly fire.
Would you want him next to you? Would you want him next to you?
No. It's just give him a gun and let him go.
Yeah.
He's running wild.
I mean, he's doing a stare that is not dissimilar to Jack Nicholson's in The Shining, and Jack Nicholson was influenced by demonic spirits. So, what's that tell you?
Jack Nicholson at war.
Isn't it kind of weird that it's Vincent D'Onofrio really didn't get a lot of? Well, I mean, this and Kingpin, but between that, wouldn't you think after a movie like this, after a performance like this, he would be cast in like everything?
Yeah.
The same can be said about Ray Liotta. You know, I always loved him in Goodfellas, and for whatever reason, he really didn't have any other big films. I think that just kind of happens with these, like these special. I don't know. You don't call this like an artsy film. I don't know what you do. I mean, it's a cult classic, obviously, but what do you title it during the time when it's released? Because I mean, it's a standout, and you know, just like Goodfellas, it's a film we revere. So I don't understand why sometimes that happens where these actors, you know, they have one good moment in the sun and then for whatever reason it just fades away immediately.
For Vincent D'Onofrio, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean he didn't have a lot of big opportunities because of this.
Oh, I disagree. The most iconic role that he was in for me is in Men in Black as Edgar, the alien cockroach
Oh, come
man.
on. That is not that big of a role. Maybe in the what was it?
That's pretty
Wait,
big.
I
was that
don't know.
okay?
I could jump onto that. I don't think that people knew it was Vincent D'Onofrio is what we're trying to say. It's like, yes, he's been in other stuff though, but after Kingpin, it was like you look back at his IMDb and you're like, oh wow, he was in all these other things, because I didn't know he was in Men in Black until a few years ago.
Wow,
I remember seeing that in the theater, and when it came out in '97, I believe. So I was around 7. It's freaked me out. Scared the shit out of me. His performance.
He's gross in it. Yeah, he's horrifying. Huh. Well, you know, it was sad seeing him get to this point because, you know, really I didn't like him very much throughout the movie, but I was definitely intrigued by him. And I just loved the way he played off of the drill sergeant. We all, man, us guys, we were just dying at the drill sergeant. You know, it's like you could not hear that kind of dialogue at all anymore. Man, it cracked us up so bad. I could see why this first segment is just as special as it is. This was kind of when I went in to see this, I didn't remember having the highest hopes for Full Metal Jacket just because I don't know, it didn't really stick out to me for whatever reason. And when we sat down and watched it this time, it's really, to me, what makes this whole movie is the drill sergeant. I absolutely loved him. He is so funny. It's hard to actually get me to laugh at all at anything. But man, the way he was digging in on these guys. I mean, man, I wish I had that kind of wit. He really, really stole the show for me. I loved it.
Oh, he had the wit for sure.
Yeah, he had the wit, you know, and you don't hear that kind of repertoire at all anymore. Maybe that's for the best, but my gosh, there's a strange part of this story that I don't know. This first part, as tragic as it is, there's something about it that kind of almost to me feels like a call to arms. There's something about it where I kind of want to join those guys during the training, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but something that this movie kind of made me realize was that if Gen Z, you know, Gen Z and Gen Alpha were thrown into the mix here, that I think we'd be screwed having to do the training that these guys have to do, especially for people that aren't, young people that aren't, you know, interested. If we were all just thrown into the draft and had to go through these training regiments, I don't know how it would go for us. I think we'd be really screwed.
I do not think it would go well.
No.
I mean, like, there was like during World War II, there was people who were like ripping up their draft cards and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's not going to be any better than 2025.
Didn't Muhammad Ali go to jail because he didn't want to get drafted to Vietnam, or is that a different war?
Yeah, no, that's Vietnam. Yeah,
He did. He ripped up his draft card.
Mm-hmm.
Boaca, he makes a good point here. The R. Lee Ermey was he's the drill sergeant in this. He says he was a real drill instructor and talked himself into the role. That is
No kidding.
so crazy.
exactly. Yeah,
Well, there is a big history when it comes to the original actor who was going to play the drill sergeant. His name was Tim Colseri. He has a long interview on Michael Bihn's podcast. Michael Biehn played Hicks in Aliens, and Tim was cast in the movie for a long period of time and went to London to rehearse the film, and a long drawn out thing where he basically was fired because R. Lee, right? That's his first initial is R.
yes, it is. Yeah,
Yeah. And Kubrick fired Tim. And to get more detail on it, you got to listen to that whole story. It's very, very telling, and it's not surprising because a lot of shit and disloyalty goes down in Hollywood. And that's an example of Stanley Kubrick being an asshole. And he was.
Wow,
Yes,
sounds
Even
like
though
he was
people
a
make
nightmare on
excuses.
set.
No, yeah, look, he was a family man. That's great and all that stuff. But when it comes to his work as a filmmaker, he has demonstrated that he is an asshole. And there's no sugarcoating about it. You can look at the documentary where he's directing Shelley Duvall in The Shining. He was like doing a method thing with her of treating her poorly and yelling at her, and okay, you want to get to that place, have some kind of an agreement. But I believe he was a director who looked at actors as cattle, I think, or he was one of those actors who believed in that philosophy. And the more I hear about actors talking about him, even the ones such as the guy who plays Joker, I listened to an interview of him, and he was very diplomatic about how difficult he was to work, yet also balanced it with, but yet he had a sweet side, and I got to meet his wife, and he lived in that kitchen at home with his wife and kids. Okay, yeah, there's a delineation there, but he's still an asshole. It's like,
Doesn't change a damn thing.
Hold on a second. But what about the movie Whiplash with J.K. Simmons, where he was explaining to
That's a
Mr.
great-
Fantastic about that? Yeah, like you have to push people to get greatness, to be great. You have to have sacrifice, and it ain't pretty. I'm not saying I'm not excusing them or absolving them of sin. I'm just saying, like, sometimes to get. I mean, you mentioned The Shining. The Shining is like a top 50, 20 movie of all time. Like, so you gotta push these people, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but you do get a hell of a performance out of them.
I agree, but the situation with the drill sergeant is different. At one point, R. Lee got into a car accident after 3 days of filming. Then they called Tim back and said, hey, now we need you for the role. But the insurance company said, no, we're sticking with R. Lee because he's the one who's insured. And so they shut down production for a few months. And it's just like that's just terrible treatment of business as well.
Was that what Tim had said in his interview with Michael Biehn?
I tend to believe him because Michael Biehn actually knows him and was on set with Michael Biehn on Aliens because they were coinciding with their shoots.
I can tell you now that is let's just say it's a misremembered truth.
Why do you say that?
That is because I know different. I know absolutely different. Now, just quickly going back to your point about the way Kubrick has treated certain people. Now, I can attest to being on hundreds of movie sets with so many different directors. I mean, having worked with alongside people like Christopher Nolan and David Fincher and Ridley Scott and Steven Spielberg and so on and so forth, including Stanley Kubrick. And this is how it is. It's no place for it's no place for delicate flowers. It's if you're a delicate flower and you want to go into a set, it ain't for you. That's the way it is. It's a business. It's an industry, and it can be to a certain degree a little bit of a meat grinder. But this is the way it is. And most actors actually know that. Most actors that work in movie know that. Most actors that work in theatre know that it's a similar kind of thing. It's not always like that. Sometimes you get a rather, a softer director. But for the most part, the pressure of a director when they're directing something that's a multi-million-dollar movie where the release date is already set and they have to get the movie made within a certain amount of time. But I can tell you that the story about Ali Ermey, they didn't shut the production down at all. It was never shut down. That production was never shut down, and he was never asked to go back. He had an injury where when he drove his car into a ditch, in fact, not far from where I am right now, in Epping Forest.
Oh, wow.
And he was out of action for about 3 weeks, and that was that. And that was only for the stuff that was shot over at Royston, a place called Bassingbourne Barracks, and over at the Royal Small Arms barracks at Enfield, which again is very, very close to me. That genuinely is what happened. There's never been a time where a Stanley Kubrick movie has ever been shut down, and they certainly wouldn't shut a movie down, for when the movie was shooting over at Beckton Gas Works, which obviously doubles up for Way City. The place was covered in asbestos, and they never shut. They never
Why?
shut. They never shut down. It's
What the hell was OSHA back there?
It's an old. It was an old gas. It was an old gas works that had been bombed during the Second World War. So it was at a place called the Isle of Dogs, kind of the East End of London, and it had been bombed. And by the time we'd come out of the Second World War, most of it was damaged and everything. It was kind of abandoned for decades and decades and decades, and part of it was still working, but then because of nuclear power, it fell out of use. And Kubrick had seen it on some news reports, about the place was going to be flattened and it was going to be developed for housing or office space or whatever. And he went down there and thought, what can I do with this? And of course, they made a convincing version of Way City there, with the fantastic Anton Furst, who was the production designer on that. Somebody who I'd worked with previously on The Company of Wolves, and he was the person that actually got me onto Full Metal Jacket.
So he saw this place covered in asbestos and nuclear waste and just said, "We'll sweep it up and film a movie here."
It wasn't. Well, it was just there. There wasn't a great deal that they could do. They couldn't touch the asbestos. It had to be specialists had to come in and take it away. But there was so much asbestos there. And obviously they had to stay away from the asbestos and a lot of the chemicals, a lot of the it wasn't water that was there. You had these little puddles of this sort of oozing blue chemical mix that was there, sort of foaming chemicals. So it was a pretty deadly place to work, a really deadly place to work. But they did it.
That's insane.
Yeah, and it's
I
hard to
love
believe
guerrilla filmmaking.
Yeah.
He worked through it. It's part of the story. It's part of the history. They kept going. You know what I mean? They took advantage of the situation. I read that he did not want to film outside of, what was it, the UK?
Yeah.
I can't believe all of that was filmed just right there, just all handmade sets. That's pretty great.
It's incredible. I mean, the buildings there were existing sets, but they were dressed very much with Anton Furst, the production designer, and the art department. But also there's again, not far from me, because all of where this took place really is very, very, very close to where I am. I mean, I can more or less sort of have a quick jog and get down to some of the locations from where I'm sitting right now. Yeah, there was one of the locations was actually in Epping Forest. The bit where they're doing the run, and Joker is kind of holding up Pyle, and Pyle's head sort of flopping around, and he's at the back of the group of guys. That was done literally minutes away from me.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and they just used like little warehouses, just outside of housing estates, just small little warehouses for some of the sets.
What time is it for you right now inside bed?
It's around about let me see.
Gosh, it must be so late right now.
Yeah, it's pretty late.
Oh man, that's just staying up with us, man. I didn't realize that.
It's getting on for 4 a.m.
So inside man, I'm curious, what was your position on the production?
Mine was only brief, but it was only in pre-production. So my little story, which I sort of relate to Proctor. So it was Anton Furst who was the production designer on this. Well, I previously worked with Anton Furst on a film called The Company of Wolves, and I was only a kid, just out of school and everything, and I would do anything to get into the movies. It was something that I wanted to do, so I would just constantly send letters and resumes out to everybody. But having worked with Anton, he said, I said to him, if there's anything else that you got coming up, please bear me in mind, keep hold of my number and pass it on to whomever. Well, oddly enough, it was around about 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning. My home telephone rang, and of course, my mother picked up the phone and she said, here's a telephone call for you, and she was none too pleased. It was an Italian gentleman. And he said, "Oh, are you able?" He said, we need some help, sort of getting some props and everything. Would you be okay? Picking up some props with me and somebody else. And I said, yeah. I said, when's this for? He said, probably in about 5 hours time. So I was right, okay. So I kind of couldn't get back to sleep, so I thought I may as well stay up. A guy had my address, and this big sort of yellow sort of truck thing pulled up outside my house, and I jumped in, and there was like 3 of us in the front seat, like a big bench seat at the front. So the driver and this other guy, and then me. We're driving along, and I greeted them, and one of the guys didn't say much, and the driver kind of nodded, and right, okay. So I started talking, and this guy that's sitting next to me is writing on a notepad, and he says to the driver, "You said, can you give me another one of your notepads? I need another notepad." So he pulls a notepad out of his shirt pocket, gives it to him. He's writing all the way through the journey, and we stopped off at a place called PG Wing, which was an army surplus place, which is in a small Essex village called Saffron Walden. So we stopped off at this place, and they opened up this huge sort of warehouse full of all of this military gear, this old military gear. And this guy said, can you, just help us kind of, load the truck up? So started getting all these helmets. So there were all these Vietnam helmets that all had the camo covers on them. And this guy starts pulling off these camo covers, and I'm thinking, fuck, what's he doing? He's pulling all the camo covers off the helmets, and he's looking at them. He's looking at the front of the helmets. So with the 68 M1 GI helmets at that time, I think they had what's known as a front seam, and there were 2 types. So you had a front seam, which was a kind of like a tiny little fold of metal at the front, or you had a rear seam, which was like this tiny little fold of metal at the back. You could barely make it out because it was all painted. They were all painted and what's known as corked. So you had the covers over them, so you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the 2. And this guy's saying, these are all rear seam. These are rear seam. I wanted front seam. And he said, well, no one's going to notice the difference. You're all going to have the camo covers on. He said, who the hell's going to know? And this guy just sort of goes, he goes, I'll know. And he's just like fiddling about with his beard. Anyway, we piled a few of them, all of the front seam helmets, into this truck. And he said, we'll take these, but we'll drop you off, and hopefully we'll come back and we'll do the rest of them, pick the rest of them up. So he said to the driver, he said, do you mind just, he said, how close is the hospital? And I said, it's not far, because we just got into my town. And he said, how close to the hospital? So it's very, very close. And he said, can you direct us to the hospital in this town? So directed us to the hospital, my local hospital. And I had to get out of the truck, because this guy had to get out of the truck as well, because he wanted to have a look at something. So we parked in the hospital car park, and he turns to me and says, you see that up there, that floor up there? I said, yeah. So he kind of points to like the 2nd floor of this hospital. I said, right, okay. He said, that's where I filmed A Clockwork Orange. And I've gone, are you Stanley Kubrick? Because nobody knew what Stanley Kubrick looked like.
Uh-huh.
Nobody knew what he looked like. And I said, are you Stanley Kubrick? He said, Uh, yeah.
Whoa,
What?
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I like the build up, and that's the conclusion. I did not see that coming. I'm like, who is
That's
this guy?
insane.
It's a little
Yeah.
detailed question. Inside Man, when he was speaking to you, did he, because I saw a little whatever was left of the behind the scenes or what was released, there was a moment when they were shooting the barracks that he had an amalgamation of a British accent and American. Did he have that when you were speaking to him?
Yeah. Sounded
it's
more
strange.
British. Sounded more British because I think because he'd spent so much time over here.
Right.
And his daughter spoke with an English accent as well. So, I think his wife was German. I think.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, he sounded more sort of British. But I think whenever he spoke to an American, his New York accent would come straight out again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Wow.
That
I
shit's
like
real.
I like the
If I-
groveling voice.
If I'm hearing people in a Midwest accent where I'm from in Chicago, it'll be more accentuated with
Yeah,
my A's, like, hey, how's it going? Like that type of thing.
yeah.
I'm gonna kick his ass. I'm gonna kick his ass. I'm just gonna kick his ass.
Yeah.
Here, real quick, before we move on to the second part of the story, which is not as exciting as the first part, but definitely deserves some discussion, because my main question for the second part is why. I think a lot of us are wondering why that happened the way it did. Okay, yeah. So, but before we do that, let me just get to the chat real quick. Jeez, we're an hour in. Sorry, everybody. We're saying hi. Hey, Cass, thanks for joining us. Proctophile, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for keeping things interesting. Yep, Inside Man. You guys are cool.
Good guy.
Ty, you keep blowing into the mic, just so you know. Megan the Texan. Hey, Megan. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Kyle knows you well. Luther Hare. Y'all put on your helmet. I grew up on this movie. What's up, Luther? Thanks for joining us. Hopefully, we're not disrespecting the title for you, man. Let's see. I'm glad Bohika's here again. It was fun having him on in the chat the other day. So thanks for joining us again, Bohika. Good to see you, man. Let's see. I saw we had somebody else in here too. Jake Waters. This made me laugh when I read this. Jake Waters. Apparently, you Gen Z pussies could make a good movie. I don't know what this is referring to. You're not wrong. So yeah, sorry about that. Sorry in advance. I'm not part of that. I'm not a filmmaker. I'd like to. It'd be great if I could contribute, but yeah, it's not on me, man. Don't be hating on us. This panel, we're all about changing that. And then another guy, Carl Dicketh. The characters are just kids. We reminded this when the reaction to all the atrocities they've seen is to sing the theme to the Mickey Mouse Club at the end of the movie. Yeah, man, we're gonna get to that. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this second half because, like we've been alluding to this whole time, that it goes in a totally different direction. I'm curious to know what people thought the first time they saw this in theaters. Just seeing how much this film changes, because even though we're finally in Vietnam, boots on the ground, we are not following Private Pyle anymore. We're following Joker and his story most of the time, and a few other new add-ons to the team as well. But the remainder of the movie isn't like an action-packed Vietnam trip at all, and it's really not like. It's not a story of like what goes on in soldiers' heads necessarily. It's kind of, to me, like just kind of thinking about it out loud, it seems like it's really just kind of like an almost an aimless expedition of a couple soldiers living in the life in Vietnam. What's it like being in Vietnam as a Marine?
Yeah, I'll put it bluntly. The second act is a slump. It just slumps down.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no villain. There's no main quest.
There's really no directive. And if there is, it's very muddled.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no mission. Yeah, there's no mission. There isn't a single reason why we even follow these characters anymore.
It's quite unnecessary, honestly.
I would disagree with everybody. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm so sorry.
Preach.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I just
fire away.
I think this is where it ramps up. Personally, I think this is where we
Wow,
get
man.
to. I think this is where we really get to know Joker. We get to know what Joker is all about, and um, especially, we see the horror on his face. I don't really want to talk about it until we actually get to that moment, but the way he's been affected, particularly beginning with Pyle's death. I think that was the first thing that really affected him, and I think that's why he wears the peace button as well. Um, he he's a very, very strange character. He's a contradiction. um but I really enjoyed him coming into contact with the other guys that are real gung-ho meatnecks, and him just being a journalist, not one that's really going out there to kill. He doesn't want to kill. He doesn't want to watch any of the death. But it's just a job that he has to do. And I think one of the things that's quite interesting is the various endings that were originally written and originally suggested for this, which I'll come to, at the end. But they were very, very, very different to what we got.
Something that kind of surprised me about this whole segment was, last week we talked about Saving Private Ryan, and these are two very different movies. I was kind of surprised by how ungraphic this was. This wasn't really graphic at all, and we see a lot of characters blow up and get shot up, and we don't really see very, it's not a graphic demonstration, which I don't mind, but it was definitely different. I wasn't really expecting that. When I don't see those sorts of things, it kind of takes me out of it, because I feel like once you have an understanding of that's what it really looks like, it is graphic, it's gross and awful. It's kind of hard to look at another movie the same way. But I know I was definitely, you mentioned it, Inside Man, that Joker's an interesting character because he's sort of, he talks about the duality of man pretty early on into the second part, and he mentions that he's kind of like he's sort of embracing two sides of the spirit, right? He has to be sort of the warrior, he has to be the soldier, but he also wants to be a man of peace and to be a merciful character. So how did you guys feel about that? Do you think that's like possible in this scenario?
No.
How do you feel about his whole principle here?
I think it was very manufactured. This idea that the visual cue of him having Born to Kill on his helmet, but also having a peace sign lapel button, was, even at one point when he's asked what the hell is that about by a higher up, his first answer is, I don't know. and then a moment later, then he gives the answer, the duality of man. Is it, what? Why did you say I don't know? It's like,
yeah, I think he'd have it figured out. I mean, it's a pretty stark contrast between those two. I don't know. It was
Inside. I want to respond to what you said, Inside Man. So you touched upon, it's interesting to you because you get some insights as to in the aspect of character. But in terms of scenario, these are just vignettes you're just bouncing around. You get like encounters with prostitutes and maybe a firefight. You get to see the gunner man on the helo, which was actually the original actor, Tim, whatever his last name is pronounced, who was going to play the sergeant or the drill instructor.
Yeah.
Which is a good scene, but they stand alone. They're not connected to really anything that's a linear progression, except when the third act starts with the crow's nest sniper and they get attacked, and then you see it's a sequence that concludes with in the movie. So the middle with the second act is just a fixture of vignettes, really, of character.
But that's you can examine any movie like that as well. It's really just a series of events that characters are walking through.
No, they're different kinds of filmmakers. Like if you look at Terrence Malick, those are definitely just like you're in a dream state and there's nothing really connective. But if you look at a movie like, getting a little ahead of you, Brawler, Aliens, that movie has a goal. Okay, we're going to this colony that we don't have any contact with anymore. We're going to see what the fuck happened. See?
Yeah,
I know, I'm
but
excited to talk
that's
about
but what we're talking about here is that this is a character. This is the movie is the character. The movie is the character. It's from start to finish. It's
No, that's
joking.
fair.
It's
That's
not.
fair.
It's not.
That's fair.
It is.
I'm just
It's
saying.
not-
So the difference between you and me here is that you appreciated that. This is just a matter of taste at this point,
Yeah,
and it's fine.
Of course.
Yeah. I'm just, and we agree essentially that there isn't basically a narrative going on in the middle of the film from
Correct.
the basic training that has an end goal where like the lead up is to the graduation, and they're getting them to that point, right? And then the middle is they're traversing Vietnam essentially, and you get these moments that are just collective. And then at the very end is when you have a sequence that is, okay, what's the goal? We're going to try to kill this sniper who's killing us. And it's very dramatic and intense. So that's what I mean. The middle for me was a slump, and I had to make the conscious choice to pay attention rather than it didn't grab me. You see?
Yeah, rather than just let it sit in the background while you do something else. Because I think it's hard, like, I think about 2001 Space Odyssey, because that's the last Kubrick film we watched. And, I didn't think when we were in the first chapter of this movie, it had I saw no connections at all. But then when we entered this section, it almost seemed like it was like an atmospheric piece, seeing Vietnam, seeing the chaos and the destruction of what's come from this war, and seeing how these characters that we were introduced to, how they react and how they adapt to these situations. Because I think something that I'm curious about, curious about how accurate was how the soldiers, how they treated the situations. Because a lot of the time, pretty much every instance where the main squad we follow encounters danger, even if it's just a small level of danger, they go apeshit nuts and they light up those buildings. And I don't remember seeing that sort of action take place in a lot of movies, especially the bigger ones, where that's like the first resort, where everybody just starts lighting up the joint. So I'm curious to know how accurate that is to like maybe the experience the soldiers had in Vietnam. Maybe that's something that maybe it's sort of a rookie move because it's more so done out of fear than anything else, right? So that intrigued me.
Yeah, I suppose we have to remember that most of these young men that went to war in Vietnam, that they were drafted, that they weren't necessarily professional soldiers per se. They weren't volunteers, so they didn't want to be these men, but they became something that maybe they didn't want to be. I'm sure that there is levels of accuracy. I mean, I have spoken to a few people that have served in Vietnam, and this is, along with Apocalypse Now, these are the two movies that they always say are the closest to what it was actually like. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting point actually you make. I suppose it depends on the individuals and also the time as well, because this is what, 68? Set in 68, I think.
Was it 60? I think so. Yeah, I heard 68 a lot.
Yeah, and of course this is based on Gus Hasper's book as well, isn't it? The Short Timers. So, so a lot of that was gleaned from Gus Hasper's book.
We have some interesting discourse in the chat I want to call real quick. Proctophile and Megan agreeing and disagreeing with your guys' takes. Proctophile, completely disagree. This is what the first half is prepping them for. And while it seems aimless, it's because infantry don't make any decisions on the front line. They follow orders. That's what Proctophile's got to say. Then Megan the Texan also adds, I agree with the Inside Man. I'm not sure if Joker chooses being a journalist before or after Pyle's death. In my mind, I think Pyle's death is a catalyst for him not wanting to be on the front lines.
Good point. Good point. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Nice, Megan.
Can you choose at that point if you want to be on the front lines or not?
I think it was. I don't know. I don't know how it worked back then. I certainly don't know the inner workings of the Marine Corps. I suppose it's possible. I don't
Well,
know.
then who drew the short straw on D-Day and Saving Private Ryan being in the front?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, that was
Joe.
a different situation. Correct me if I'm wrong. They weren't drafted back then. They enlisted in the World Wars.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Huh. Well, while all this is going on here, when the action starts to heat up, we're of course introduced to some new characters, right? And one character that immediately caught my eye for an interesting purpose was, gosh, where is he? I got a picture of him here. I think his name's Adam Baldwin, the actor.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is he okay? So is he
No.
Alec
I knew you were going to
Alec
say
Baldwin's
no.
brother. Is it
No
Alec
relation
Baldwin's brother?
to
Alec
Stephen
Baldwin.
Baldwin, Billy Baldwin, Alec. He is not
He's
one of the
not a
Baldwin brothers.
Okay.
No.
I have a picture of him somewhere.
Just a
here.
straight
Here
Baldwin.
we go. This guy, of course, this is also
Yep.
one of those key characters in the movie. I thought, he was, he's kind of, propped up to be the next interesting, intriguing character you want to follow. To me, he really wasn't that interesting. When I looked at him, I immediately thought that this was like the ideal image of what Private Pyle would have become if he had, not chosen to take his life at the end of basic training. I thought this is literally what he could have possibly became. I mean, he's pretty different, but he shared a lot of similarities as well. He kind of has a slurred, slow speech. He is he's just kind of slow altogether. He's slow-witted, and he looks just like him too. And a lot of the time when we see him, he gives you this blank stare. I couldn't help but to see this as more of like an evolved version of Pyle. And I think, instead of, giving us this new character, which has a really weird name, it's Animal Mother. I tried finding his real name. I guess that
is
what
weird.
he goes. Yeah, that's what he goes by. I'm like, I don't remember
Animal
them saying
Mother?
that a single time.
It doesn't flow very well as a moniker.
No, and it's not cool either. It's Private Pyle sounds cooler than Animal Mother, but I was just kind of wondering, what did you guys think of this character? Did you think that, do you think he showed promise? Did he pick up the mantle well? Were you intrigued by him?
I feel like
What
it was
did
a
you
little
think before he went?
arrogant in a good way.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
He's the one that charged right up to the front lines to try to get past, to try to locate the sniper by himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all I got. He was gutsy. You go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I don't agree, Brawler, that he was down the line version of Pyle if Pyle had chosen to live. No, I don't. No,
not at all.
This guy is a hothead. He's the hothead archetype, and Pyle is not that. He's the quiet killer, essentially. I mean, what I pigured Pyle becoming was a sniper.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I think at the end sequence in chapter, I guess we call it chapter 1, we saw Pyle, and you make a good point. He was kind of the silent danger in the end, but he kind of he became competent before he made that terrible decision. We saw that Hartman began to respect him there. He had some sort of ownership, and he understood what was expected of him in the end. And that's why he was able to graduate. And Hartman, gave him a pat on the back and told him, you know what, you'd be a great rifleman as a member of the Marine Corps. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw that version as potential for this, but otherwise, I guess, sure, you could say that. You make a good point. He's a hothead. Pyle is more of a silent guy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The silent killer.
The silent.
I really didn't fall in love.
Good way to put it.
I was gonna say I really didn't fall in love with many of these people in the second act at all. Because kind of felt like we're just gonna throw a bunch of guys at the screen. We're gonna give them fun names and quirky personalities. But I don't. Compared to that first act, it just kind of feels thrown together to me.
The only character that I started to care for, because I think it's a testament to the actor's performance, is I can't remember the actor's name who plays Cowboy, and his death sequence where he says, "I can hack it," as he's dying.
Yeah.
Now, nobody said it yet, but pretty much every moment in this movie is a demonstration to the message of being anti-war. That's ultimately what this movie is, and it tells me that Kubrick was anti-war as well. And I think, a rational person would get on board with that. And I think I err on the side of, I don't support the war, I support the soldier. I think it should be a last resort when we go to war. But every instance in this movie just showcases moments of mistakes that could have been avoided, or just people attacking each other. That, the twist at the end where you find out who the sniper is a demonstration of a subversion. That what did we think? Who did we think it was? Well, not necessarily who, but we thought it was a man. Okay, we all thought it was a man,
Right.
and that's done on purpose to showcase, well, you don't know a lot of what you're getting into, and it will be worse than what you think it's going to be. I think that's the message there.
Yeah.
And it will change you for the worst.
Yeah.
It's a dark message mixed in with some dark comedy. The drill instructing scenes, dialogue in there is, a lot of it's funny, but the message ultimately is, and it actually could have been darker, because according to the trivia that I read, at least, Joker was supposed to die. There was a conversation between Kubrick and Matthew Modine about that.
Yeah.
So, and I agree with what Modine said. His case for why you should live is that him living and learning these lessons of seeing all these horrific things occur is actually worse than him dying. And throughout the film, this is a good motif that actually the film does, is Modine's character, whose real name is James, by the way. The character's name, not Joker. So James is mentioning how he's going to get his first real close-up kill, and so the irony is that the one he gets is the one he doesn't want to do, which is to kill this woman sniper. And I wanted a little more actually from Adam Baldwin's character in that moment, because James is saying, / Joker is saying, "We can't leave her, man," and Adam Baldwin says, we're not taking her. You want to be a hero? Like, this is a dialogue that I was thinking that he could have said, is like, you want to be a hero? Go ahead, help her. Help her. Which is, the subtext is, shoot her right now. To really taunt him could have been added to the tense nature and darkness of that scene. But he does end up shooting her. And weirdly enough, it's off screen. It's a medium close up of basically this, how you see my frame of myself, and him holding the gun down. And I was expecting Kubrick to either at least show the gun in a close up, from a side view going off, or from a very, very wide shot away where you see the group huddled in that circle, and then that flash just goes off. I think that would have been pretty, and you hear the echo inside the building. Yeah.
You make a good point. That was a weird perspective.
Yeah, it was boring. Honestly, it was boring. It was boring to just hold on that one shot. I was expecting more out of Kubrick than it's a simple setup through the whole scene.
I think it's interesting how the majority of the panel was underwhelmed by the second spot, and I was surprised that Kubrick would give us I hate to say it, sorry, Inside Man, an underwhelming second and third act. It really was. I think all of us could agree that, and that just hearing the Kubrick name, you have high expectations for that. And I think there's a standard that every scene has a purpose. And something I did admire about this movie that I've really grown to admire about Kubrick is, my gosh, the cinematography is just masterful. I remember I was looking at this one scene where the soldiers, the Marines, they're at the camp when they land in Vietnam, and there's finally some action. Everybody's trigger happy, and the men rush to their LMGs. They're down the line, and he just perfectly shows the layers of space. You know what I mean? There's so many different grounds that he conquers in the distance to show just how much volume there is. And every time he keeps a shot active. There was just a simple scene where I think it was Joker and some other commanding officer are just walking on like the dirt path on the side of a street, and they're walking towards the camera. And as this is happening, you have some Vietnamese people to the left of them walking the opposite direction. Sometimes, they're carrying items. And then to the right of them, you have tanks driving by. You have medic vehicles. And I think he just beautifully, I want to know who the cinematographer is. I'm wondering if it's like one particular one that does a lot of his movies, because Shining was great. I've seen that. 2001 was the best. This does not trump 2001 Space Odyssey, that cinematography, but this here is just another one of those films that really just it looks like art, and I love that.
Yeah, but I mean, as good as the cinematographer is, with a Kubrick film, he's the one that places the camera. He's the one that tells the cinematographer exactly what he wants, and if it isn't what he wants, then he's going to move the camera. I mean, I know that not many of you really like this part of the movie. I actually think this entire movie is an absolute masterpiece. I think it's a masterpiece and a masterclass in filmmaking. There are very few people that would. Certainly very few filmmakers that would come to this movie and say, it didn't jive with me. But if you're looking at it from an artistic point of view, certainly from a character point of view as well, and even from a writing point of view, I think I'm finding it very difficult to come up with anything that would be negative about it. I think it's as perfect a movie, I think, as I've possibly seen. It's just an absolute masterclass and masterpiece. I genuinely believe that.
I don't know if anyone's saying that the third act isn't good. If they are, please someone speak up about it. I think the cinematography when they're going through the Tet Offensive in the ruined city, the mixtures of when the sun is going down with the blues and the fire and it hitting the walls of stone and them running through to go after the sniper, I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
That's that kind of cinematography. I just got chills just talking about it, because that stuff looked like that would be released today.
Yeah.
It looks excellent.
The reason I give that so much credit is because 1987, man. I mean, that's a long time ago.
I mean, that's a really good point. I think if you compare this to Platoon, I think Platoon is kind of there's something about that movie that seems to have been date stamped. I don't know what it is, but if you look at Full Metal Jacket, I don't think there's anything that really date stamps this movie. And the same with Apocalypse Now. I don't think Apocalypse Now has a date stamp on it. And out of those three movies, I think Platoon is the one that doesn't hold up.
We're going to rewatch Platoon soon. I am so curious about that one. Is that the one with Michael J. Fox, Mark Ruffalo, Sean Penn?
That's Casualties of War.
Oh, that's a tough one to watch.
Yeah, Brian De Palma. Yeah, it's a tough watch. That's a very tough watch.
I don't know if we'll talk about that one. That was hard to get into. That was particularly damning, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, to go back to Full Metal Jacket and its cinematography, I think it's not totally perfect. There's a moment when they're in a different part of a combat, and I noticed that an inside man, you might say that it's intentional, but I noticed that there was a long lens on a camera that was moving around in a way that didn't feel like it was supposed to, where they're moving with the characters. And it was different when I think you probably put a more wider lens on in the third act. So I just noticed that difference there.
Okay.
So.
Well, here's the thing about Kubrick, right? Now he will shoot 6 hours worth of footage for 2 minutes worth of footage. So that's quite a ratio. So he would shoot 6,000
That's
feet.
crazy.
He would shoot 6,000 feet. Sorry, no, 6 hours. No, that's just trying to work that out. So 6 hours. That's it's probably about 27,000 feet of footage
Gosh,
for 2 minutes.
physical film. Man.
Yeah, and he doesn't pass anything that isn't right, and he'll come back to it again and again and again. And he was about the only director that really had the credentials to override anybody if they said no, sorry, you can't shoot that, which is why he always produced his own movies, so that he had more of a say so in everything. So he always had final cut. So
I miss artists, man. I mean, you're
Yeah.
describing an artist here, an artist filmmaker that really cares. And I wish, man, I wish we could go back to physical film because
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. You know, I am so used to watching these older films. Whenever I'm watching a movie at home, I will never put on something new. I have zero interest in watching anything new at home. If I want to go to the theater for that garbage,
Yeah.
just because it's more fun and it's more enjoyable. So
Yeah.
when we watch these movies at home, even though we have good setups and everything, you know, just seeing the grain, there's something about it where it just it's the essence of a movie. Like when I see things nowadays, how clean they are,
Yeah.
how crystal clear. There's something about film, physical film, that just gives it that, I don't know, like it's almost retro at this point, which
Yeah.
is strange. But it just seems like it's like a token of authenticity that, you know, this is what a real movie is. And that's probably the case because, you know, the standards have just gone so far down the toilet that, you know, all of the older films, no matter how, you know, low quality they may be, you know, the standard was different back then. And I'd say most of the trash movies in the 90s and the 80s, early 2000s definitely trump the trash movies we get today.
They're not as bad as when they came out, and people said they were. I think it's a combination of quality that you're acknowledging and the evidences of analog, because the way that film was processed was different back then. The way that film is processed today, look at Nolan's films. He shoots on film. You could say that you wouldn't necessarily know unless, say, like with an IMAX. When I saw Dark Knight on IMAX, you could see the detail enough where this actually is moving like film and it looks like natural grain, etc. But when you look at, if you looked at Interstellar, for example, you really wouldn't necessarily tell the difference to know if that was digital or film, because they kind of merge together at this point, because that stuff needs to be processed digitally still. You see?
Okay. Weird. Yeah, we just need, if we could just find a middle ground, that would be great. I would love that. That'd be
Yeah,
nice.
I've never seen a screening of one of his films, or even Quentin Tarantino's films, where he screens the films on a film projector. So I suppose, yeah, I would have to say that, it's been a long time since I've seen a film projected on film, you know?
That'd be interesting.
yeah,
Man, I'd
right.
love that. That'd be awesome. Well, you know, we're going to conclude soon with the story here because there isn't too much more to talk about. You know, poor Inside Man, we've been dogging the second and third acts here. You know what? There's still some grace. I think let's talk about the point where it starts to heat up a little bit, because I think what was disappointing from the motion from part 1 to part 2 was that right after Private Pile dies, the momentum just completely falls on its ass. And I feel like, you know, there was so much build up to that moment. And once that happened, it was like the story was over. We reset again, and it was a really slow start with Joker. You know, we see him go through several meetings, and it takes a while to actually get like boots on the ground in Vietnam. And, you know, later on, where we are at this point in the conversation, talking about the final act where the soldiers encounter the sniper in the building, they lose several of their men. Of course, Cowboy dies pretty tragically. That was
brutally, yeah.
He died.
Great performance by that actor, who, by the way, is the bad guy The one with the Confederate flag, I think that's a skull in it. Anyway, yeah, on his helmet. He's the bad guy in Jurassic Park: The Lost World with the British accent. So I think maybe this guy in Inside Man, you would confirm this. This actor is actually British.
I believe he is not.
Oh.
Well, he did a nice job in Lost World in terms of his performance. Different story when it comes to the execution with Spielberg and all that stuff, but that's a different thing.
Yeah.
First
but
of all,
at
Vince
this
Vaughn. Well, first of all,
sorry.
Vince Vaughn was actually the bad guy in the Lost World. If he didn't screw up, everyone would have lived.
You can watch my live stream on the entire Jurassic Park series. Little plug there. But yeah, Brawler. Yeah, you can get us back on track.
Yeah, no, good stuff. So, of course, when this happens, there hasn't been very much action leading up to this. They encounter a small issue as they're trying to get into this town. There's a sniper. The sniper starts picking off their men. They don't really know what to do. And then, what's his name? Like Mother Animal or Animal Mother. He kind of goes rogue and he races towards the fallen soldiers that have taken fire and are nearly dead from the sniper. And then all hell breaks loose. He finds the sniper. He kind of scouts her out. And they're trying to figure out where the sniper is. And this is where I think things start to get pretty exciting because, the stakes are pretty high at this point. They lost a few of their men that we've been following for some time now. So there's a little bit of investment into what's going on here. But at the end of the day, this segment isn't really that action-packed or necessarily that exciting because not much happens here. I guess the stakes are high because you're not really sure where she is, and she could pick off any of these guys at any moment. But they eventually breach the space, and Joker and his other journalist accomplice, they're able to get to her first. And the accomplice, the whole time he's kind of coined as a pacifist of sorts too. He seems like he's on board with peace, like Joker is. And throughout the movie, those two they hang together pretty well. Well, he lights her up good. I mean, he probably puts he probably puts a dozen rounds in her, and for whatever reason, after getting shot like a dozen times, she still has quite a bit of life left in her after that, and she's on the ground as we've been talking about, and she's dying. And this is where Joker has to make the decision if he's going to kind of break his rules of some sort to kill and to figure out if that's actually a sign of mercy or if it's an act of cruelty, even though she's begging for him to do it. And while all this is happening, of course, he's being chastised by Animal Mother. Do it. If you want to do it, do it. And this leads us to, this conundrum that he has, because this whole time he's kind of been advocating for peace. But at the same time, he also says he's born to kill. So it's like, what is he going to do? So he makes the decision and he shoots her and, ends her life in that situation. So do you guys think that his motion to put her out of her misery, to kill her, do you think that this tampers with his concept of duality of man, or does it actually actualize it?
It's tough. I personally,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I personally am feeling that too.
I mean, you're in war. What do you supposed? I mean, how many times did he shoot her? What is he gonna do? Let her live for 30 more seconds? She's gonna die anyway.
Yeah, I think this was this I think was where he was, incredibly torn, because I think it was an act of mercy. There was nothing war about it, about him killing her. It was again, I think there's I mean, I can't imagine being put in this position at all. I think if we were to put ourselves in this kind of position, where you have to kill somebody, female that's so young, even though she's been shooting your men, what would you do? It's it must have been an incredibly difficult decision for the character to have made. And I don't know. I mean, I still think it was an act of mercy. There was nothing else in that at all.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost nice of him. I mean, she was in a lot of pain in the situation. And it's kind of, she really screwed all them up. She killed a lot of their friends mercilessly. I mean,
Yeah.
she's not a good person at all. And you know, worse yet, when you think back on it, she was really baiting these guys.
Yeah.
You know, when the what was it, the medic? It was like the medic was on the ground, and then their other friend was practically dead. She was really firing them up. She was trying to heat up the squad to go out there and further injure and kill more of them. So she was especially heinous, which I think makes this whole situation, you know, that much more worth deliberation because of what she'd done before.
She almost didn't want like she gave. You couldn't really read her. You didn't really want to give her mercy, at least in my opinion. She had no expression on her face other than like insanity. And
I think I read somewhere that she wasn't like an actual actress.
I
She wasn't.
believe that.
Just threw her in there.
I believe
She an
know some
actual
more about that,
sniper?
Inside Man.
Yeah, she's an actual
wandered on
sniper.
set.
She's an actual
You're
sniper.
telling
Yeah.
me she's not actually a professional sniper.
Yeah, yeah. No, she wasn't an actress, and that was the only shot that he's ever done in. The only shot he's ever done in one take. That's the only one take shot that he's ever done. Her being killed.
Yeah, it was because I read about that. She was like, she saw the footage and she was so scarred she didn't want to do it again. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I can believe it. You know, it's funny. I actually believed for some reason, or thought for a moment in time, that the same actress was the lady who was hitting on all the men, like "Me love you long time." I thought that was the same lady for whatever reason, because it made sense. She was like in the scene right before him. What's she doing?
That this was the same prostitute that Joker slept with.
Yeah.
That would have been a dark
That was
irony.
Luke's favorite character.
Yeah.
Wait, that wasn't her?
No.
Oh, man.
This is just a different girl.
Oh, wow.
Are you
My
serious, Cam?
mistake.
We have the same thoughts.
Yeah, I thought that was her. Just like the man, you ruined this movie and the Saving Private Ryan
I
last
know.
week.
Sorry, Joe. What were you thinking? What were you thinking with Saving Private Ryan? Oh yeah, that the German guy.
the
You thought it
German
was
that
the same
obviously would
dude.
make sense.
Oh yeah, I remember.
That's
yeah.
why I thought Joker was
I s-
hesitant because
they're
he
still the same
shared
guy.
some love with her.
There's the same guy, Jackson. I know it.
No, it's not. I confirmed it wasn't.
If
Ah,
it was, it would have crossed the line into melodrama.
You know what I'm talking
Kubrick
about,
doesn't
Kyle?
do that shit. What?
Oh, you're talking about this. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I'm going back to that. What were you talking about? My
We were
mind was
talking
still on
about
that moment.
We were talking about Saving Private Ryan, how World War Joe thought that it was the German that they saved earlier in the movie. He thought that was the same German that killed the Jewish guy at the end. Like
It's been a
stabbed
while
him.
since I've seen it. Wasn't it?
Well, no, I
Exactly.
confirm. We
If
looked
you
closely
think so.
we looked closely at several references of both of those actors in the situations, and it was two different guys. They look similar though. Yeah, it's interesting.
Right.
So, what do you guys think? What are your guys' final thoughts on Full Metal Jacket? Is this movie still worth checking out? Where does it level up to you guys? Do you think it's worth just skipping the second half?
Mm-hmm.
Give us your
If I were to
final
watch
thought.
it, if I were to watch it again, I just watched the first half. I'm gonna be honest. That's what
I
that was
don't.
most
I don't
entertaining.
think it's.
Yeah,
I don't think
honestly,
it's
the
something
first
I'm-
half should have just been like a short film.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or you just make a full length movie of
The
basic
horrors
training.
of boot camp. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
because
Yeah,
it does feel very conclusory after the drill sergeant is killed by Pyle and he kills himself. I mean, very dark ending, but Kubrick loves those. He loved them. So.
Somebody earlier mentioned how it would be interesting if we just explored that timeline longer because, like we've been talking about, like Inside Man mentioned that, there was big time jumps. Like, why didn't we spend more time during these jumps? We could have maybe split that in half and maybe explored that a little longer so we could understand why he chose that path ultimately to kill the drill sergeant and himself in the end, because I think that it could have had even more weight to it if we'd seen him further bullied and further harassed by the drill sergeant, because in the end it almost like took away some of the weight because we saw the drill sergeant finally admire him. So
yeah, in the moment when they're doing target practice, which by the way I think is a flaw in that we're told rather than shown when Hartman says, "Well, look at you! You've finally done something that's I can actually approve of." In other words, essentially.
Yeah, we see him fail the whole time. We don't see him do anything good. He
but
finally does, and we don't see it.
Kubrick doesn't show us any of the targets that he hit, so we don't even see how good he is. I think that's a flaw.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
But
We're being told, not shown.
But sometimes I think that we get spoon-fed too many shots that we don't really need to have explained to us. I think it's I kind of like levels of ambiguity above being shown everything all of the time, and it kind of goes back to the same way that I don't like sequels. I just can't.
Oh gosh.
I really want to see a movie that doesn't warrant having a sequel. I want to see a movie that finishes, that ends, even if it concludes in an unsatisfactory way. I don't want to see an open ending. I just want to see a single movie, singular movies, not sequels or prequels or reimaginings or reboots or anything like that.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I can go with you on that. Yeah,
I saw that they're making a second Heat movie. How? Why? Where? When?
Yeah,
just
so unnecessary. So unnecessary.
Michael Mann wrote the book, didn't he? Michael Mann wrote the book for it.
Yeah,
the
sequel.
I guess that's promising. I still can't. I can't do it. No, I can't.
No,
I can't even get into TV series. I'm totally with you, Inside Man. I love a film. It's like you start it, you finish it. That's the end of the story. I don't want to see any more of it. My dream is, I say this all the time, is if I had a dream role, if I could be in anything, I would want to be in a prequel to Apocalypse Now, and I would want to play a young Captain Willard going on his missions as like a spy, or an assassin. I'd love that. That's my dream. That's the only prequel I want, and I want to be part of it. Francis Ford Coppola, you got my email.
yeah.
Coppola's too busy riding on the Megalopolis train wreck. So
he's trying to make some scrap money from that one.
Yeah. The last thought I have about, because I think it's a different discussion, what you said, Inside Man, because you went from talking about how you like ambiguity to then all of a sudden talking about sequels. I think that's entirely different. I do think it can be easy to say, I like whatever this filmmaker chooses to do because this is this auteur filmmaker. This is Kubrick. I have this discussion with one of my buddies. He's also an actor, about Terrence Malick, and I push against some of that stuff, even though I think Malick's films earlier on were better. A combination of traditional storytelling and his reverie-esque filmmaking. But then I can also see it from your side in the way of, well, does Kubrick and others of that ilk achieve something different than if a lesser filmmaker was doing something of that scene? It can be hard to argue, and could come down to taste, but I'll say it from that perspective for me is because I was curious in that moment of, well, what did his targets look like? I want to see.
Yeah.
It comes down to that.
I don't necessarily, it doesn't mean anything to me. I think as long as we know, we're seeing the characters, we're hearing their dialogue. I think that's enough. I think, we don't need to have those quick cutaways to everything. The bullets explode on the targets, and see him getting 5 bulls. I think that's enough. I think it's quite economical. But back to one of your other points. I mean, if do I like these? Do I really like this movie because it's a Kubrick movie? Possibly, but I don't think so. The same way I don't like Jaws because it's a Spielberg movie.
But you actually feel that way, that you don't like Jaws because it's Spielberg?
No. It's the way the way that I don't like Jaws for being a Spielberg movie. Not that I don't like Jaws. I don't like I don't like Full Metal Jacket because it's a Kubrick movie.
So you like Spielberg
because it's a good movie. I don't like Jaws because it's a Spielberg movie. I like Jaws because it's a great movie.
Okay, I understand what he's saying. I
Yeah.
understand. He's leaving out the I'm over explaining. He's leaving out the filming or the filmmaker's name from the equation. I understand. So you're
let's
able
be
to
clear.
delineate. You're able to delineate.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you like Spielberg? That's the question.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right.
You gotta like Spielberg.
Yeah. But and I would say that I agree that Kubrick is making these decisions intentionally. I would have wanted to see something different because we see two instances in which he doesn't show. You know, I brought them up with the target practice and also the death of the sniper. We see the shot I talked about where it's just on him. We don't see anything else. I think that was a missed opportunity, especially in the end, to show something more.
Yeah,
So,
That's a really personal scene. Yeah, we should have gotten. We should have
shoot
done more
that.
from that.
He shot that. He
Yeah.
did shoot that.
That makes sense,
So that
because
was
he shot for a
so-
long time.
So that scene was shot. So you do you see a little bit more. So it becomes a little bit more graphic. In fact, it becomes very graphic. Where
I don't
Adam
mean
Buck-
seeing the bullet go through her head. I'm talking
No,
about
no.
in terms of the composition
Yeah.
of the shot.
Right. Different shot.
Yeah. I mean, but how it ended was Animal Mother saying, or one of the other guys saying, "Man, you're fucking hardcore. You're fucking hardcore." And then Animal Mother comes up and says, "You want to fucking see hardcore? You want to see hardcore?" And he cuts the girl's head off.
Oh, crap.
I read
Yeah,
something
and-
about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Man, those
Man.
Baldwins
and
killing
that was
women.
that was all shot. So all
That's
of that footage
crazy.
was shot. Yeah,
I like that ending better. It's more interesting.
yeah.
You like
Yeah.
women
You have
being
a you have a
decapitated?
You have
Probably.
you have a good American accent.
Great taste,
So,
brother.
That was
Thank
good.
you.
You sound like a
Yeah, right.
because my English accent.
Can you do Midwestern?
No.
See, I'm gonna kick his
No.
ass. See, I'm gonna kick that guy's ass.
And he kicked that guy's ass.
Yeah, that sounded good.
It's getting good. Yeah.
Here, let's
More
get
fur
to
was
the-
great,
a little bit
Mohica.
of let's get to the chat a little bit real quick. Boica 462. Today's multi-million-dollar movies could use more discipline, especially in the script writing. Cut out the $250 million budget. What have we got to show for all that money in the last few years? Slop. Yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't that funny?
yeah.
It's like, they'll make money in the box office and then people immediately forget about it. They don't want to own it and they don't want to revisit it. I saw, what was it? Superman. They just released like viewership figures on how well that did on Max. It got like 10 to 14 million views upon release. And I was like, I feel bad for the 10 to 14 million people that rewatched that. That was a waste of 2 hours.
I'm surprised you just brought that up, dude. Because of how
Why?
much you vehemently
Yeah, I
dislike
know.
Superman,
I know,
and
it's-
you
that's
say
a-
you
this is-
hate talking about it.
He's a closeted
a-
fan.
No, you'll
Oh,
never make me
oh.
that. No. Carl Dicketh. The characters are just kids. We're reminded. Oh wait. Oh, we already did that. Oh, weird. Well, he's right though. At the very end, when the film's over, all the characters, all the soldiers after the Vietnamese girl was executed on the spot, they all just kind of sing la di da on their way home like nothing happened. So that is pretty interesting. Weird conclusion to show that this is sort of the norm for them at that point. That's what they've been trained to understand, I guess. Let's see. Oh yeah, Inside Man's 5 hours ahead of his time. Yep, thanks for being here, buddy. I can't believe how late it is for you. We're about to wrap it up. I like this, Boica. So he just mentioned Casablanca. I think everybody's talking about good films. I just saw this in theaters. What was it? The other day. In black and white. Oh my gosh, on the big screen. It was really special. And that was because of Cam, because of his September movie masterpieces that he announced. So thanks, Cam. Because of you, I checked that out.
Fantastic.
So that was really special seeing it in
Fantastic.
theaters.
I just
I
have a hot take when it comes
saw
to that
a
movie.
guy's
I just-
version of Casablanca a while ago, and it's horrible. It shouldn't exist.
Wait, you thought it was horrible?
No, I saw a couple years ago. I saw like a colorized version of Casablanca.
Oh
and
God.
crap.
It didn't work, huh?
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Wow.
The hot take that I have is that I think Humphrey Bogart, just based off of that movie, I haven't seen a bunch of other stuff that he's done. I just think that guy was a block of wood Ingrid
Oh,
Bergman is fantastic, gorgeous, great screen presence, but Bogart, block of wood in terms of
man.
charisma.
Oh, brilliant.
I don't
That's
see.
brilliant.
I think, I don't think you may be right I may agree with parts of that. I think for whatever reason, when I was watching that, because I'd never seen it before, and I've never seen a black and white movie in the theater, I was immediately drawn to him every single time he was on screen. He stole the show for me. And it's kind of inexplicable why. It might just be like an invisible charm. Some actors have that. Maybe that's why he gets his roles. Maybe that's why he was so popular. I need to see more of his stuff because I would like to understand that a little better too. Because it didn't seem like he was not that expressive, as you say. But he's also supposed to play the cool guy, right? He's the cool guy. He's chill. He's in control. He doesn't
That's
need
good.
to.
That's good.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since I've seen it. But as far as I can recall, his delivery is very monotone to the point where it's just that the only metaphor I can use is block of wood.
I think that's very good, actually.
Poor Humphrey.
Yeah.
Good
If
thing
you
he can't hear you now.
you would try the Kane Mutiny if you haven't seen the Kane Mutiny. I mean, what a performance he
his?
puts in this. It's great. Yeah.
Okay,
Great
and it may
performance.
look.
He's
I'm
good in
willing
the
to.
African
I don't
Queen,
discount
too.
him and rule him out altogether. Just that film on his performance in that doesn't work for me. So, Kane Mutiny, you recommend?
The Kane Mutiny, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Very, very good. Very good.
Very nice.
Kyle, I think
we'll give Bogart a shot.
We need a Humphrey Bogart retrospective on the
Yeah.
Kyle Corwith channel. Watch all his movies and rate them. Genius. I liked what Proctfile says here. Saw Eleanor the Great a day or two ago. Not a war story, but I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I saw he posted this on his X, and I was curious about this movie. I loved Thelma. What is it? Is it Judith Squibb, the actress? This old lady, this big old lady. She is so charming. I love her. She's in this new indie movie called Eleanor the Great. I guess Proctfile got to see it. I was curious, and he loves it. So I trust his opinion. If you're looking for a fun little indie movie to watch right now to kind of chill and cool off with, trust his opinion. Eleanor the Great. I love that actress.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give that a go.
And here we go. Boica, watch Warfare if you haven't. Sounds like y'all need to check out Kyle's channel for his upcoming video.
This weekend.
All right, stay tuned. Cool.
Keep
Sound
eyes
of
on.
Freedom. We're gonna talk about Sound of Freedom
Eyes
eventually.
peeled.
I love Sound of Freedom. That's one of the. It's probably top 3 favorites of mine that have come out in the last 5 years.
Like one of the creepiest openings ever, I think.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that scene just chills every time.
A part file. You enjoy any of Angel Studios' other productions? Yeah, Cabrini. Oh wait, no, they didn't do Cabrini, or did they? I think that was I think it was Universal or Lionsgate. Yeah, let's see what else. I didn't see Sketch. I wanted to see that one. Ordinary Angels. That wasn't them.
They did The Chosen.
Oh, yes, of course. They did Sound of Hope, which was great. I loved that one. Yeah, the rest are escaping me. I love what Angel Studios. Oh, you saw that?
Movie. That one's pretty good.
It was good.
Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
liked
I really
it.
do think Angel
Yeah.
Studios they do have to branch out and make other kinds of movies because I think what they're trying to do is recreate the success of Sound of Freedom, and it was rightfully an occurrence of success that movie earned. But they're trying to recreate it, and they need to branch out and do a horror movie, thriller.
Oh my gosh, that would be crazy if they did a horror
they need to
movie.
do a comedy. They need to do different kinds of stories because they're trying too hard to appeal to the Christian audience. But
I don't think they are.
I tell you that
think...
the Christian audience is also hungry for other types of stories, and they don't have to be centered around one character who is an inspiring figure. I think the recent one is that football movie. It's still in line of like that. That's very tropey. Let's do an inspiring football movie. It's
Hey,
obvious.
at least we're getting inspiring. My gosh, I haven't gotten inspiring since Sound of Freedom, man. There ain't no inspiring the last 5 years. I'm glad they're giving me inspiring, but I do agree. I think they do need to branch out and give us some more things.
How about they do something a little more challenging, like Chariots of Fire?
I don't know what that is.
Dun 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 dun
Oh,
dun.
I want to know.
Music.
Oh, Brawler, no.
I know. Sorry.
So that was the Best Picture winner. It's about a Christian man, Eric Liddell. He was an actual figure, and he was a missionary. You got to look this up, man. I can't believe you haven't seen this movie.
Oh, well,
And
would know
he's
this song,
running
I think.
against a Jewish man.
Fantastic movie.
And there's a paralleling story, and they kind of clash, but in a way that is very elegantly done, and obviously has an iconic score by Vangelis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Oh,
Cool.
yeah.
I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about it. I'll have to add that. Of course we
think
need to
you'll
watch.
appreciate it.
I think we'll watch Passion of the Christ coming up soon, and we're gonna have a panel for that one too, because of course that's another big one. Still need to see that. But they also did The Last Rodeo recently, and something I appreciate about Angel Studios. I don't mind when a Christian message is prominent, but I think it's more, I don't know, it feels a little more authentic when it's kind of subtle and it's more value based. And I think a lot of their content is that. I don't think they're pushing a message necessarily. I think they do mostly just want to inspire and give you good role models to follow. Because I don't think Marvel's giving you that. I don't think DC's giving you good role models. That's something I definitely respect that Angel Studios is producing for young audiences and people our age, because we need them too.
I agree with you, and they need to do more, is my point.
Sure.
Because they're leaning on the one-trick pony thing, and they need to branch out. That's what I am.
Well, I heard that. I didn't see Sketch, but I heard Sketch was pretty interesting, and I heard it was like a horror movie for children. That sounds interesting.
I saw the trailer for that. It didn't look interesting. The story looked interesting, but the visuals threw me off. Mm-hmm. It looked too.
It doesn't look. Yeah, it looks kiddie. It looks like it's a little kid movie. But I heard it was deeper than that. You know, it's funny how trailers can be so misleading. I think one of the funniest examples of that is, I'm not a big Transformers guy at all, but did you watch Transformers 1, the animated movie that came out like last few years?
I saw that one.
My gosh. So yeah, the trailers looked like dog water, man. They looked terrible. They looked like they were made for 7-year-old infants. And I would never have thought to give it a shot. And then Film Threat, Chris Gore, was raving about it. He loved it. And I thought, I don't know, I didn't have anything better to do. I went and saw it. It was the best Transformers movie I've ever seen. It was better than all the live action movies I've seen. It was better than the cartoons.
Including the first film?
Yes, it was the best. The best Transformers film.
I actually think the first Transformers film is very good.
Oh, yeah. Well, it has some good moments, but this one was surprisingly mature and really well layered. I couldn't believe it. So I couldn't highly recommend that better. But at the same time, the trailers were terrible. They were marketing it as if it was some brain-numb 7-year-old film. So, and that's what happened. Nobody cared.
Yeah, you and I have talked about how they're marketing movies for kids, and they're just obnoxious. The way that they market, whether they're good, I'm not sure. I remember seeing, I think it's Zootopia 2 in the theater, the trailer for it, and it's just a bunch of the characters in a montage over hip-hop club music, and it just, that's how you're going to market it to kids, and they're doing stupid stuff, and it's just, that's not substantive. That's not you're not conveying a story to kids. You're just appealing to the lowest common base stupid level that they can stoop to. By the way, there was someone in the comments that said that I am arguing for a remake of Chariots of Fire. I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they need to make a movie in the vein of Chariots of Fire that's more challenging and not as stereotypical of the inspiring movie. Variance. That is my
we're not advocating for remakes. I do not want any remakes.
Nobody should touch that story. However, if they want to make a story about Eric Liddell, that's a different thing. That's a different story, you know? They because the movie of Chariots of Fire doesn't go into how he was an Olympic runner, but after he did all that, he went to China to be a missionary.
And that's a really interesting
wait a
story,
second.
actually.
I think I know what this movie is now. That sounds familiar.
So what they could do is start their adaptation of his story at the end of where Chariots of Fire ended, when he won the gold medal, etc. You start the Angel Studios movie where Chariots of Fire ended, and then you follow him to China.
Weird. All right, man.
Yeah. I
Megan
mean, it's
the
a really.
Texan. Oh, sorry. You say your piece.
Sorry, I was going to say he's right. I mean, it's a really, really interesting story. It's a very, very interesting story, and very much worthy of a film. In fact, I think there was a film that was made of it. Funny enough, I'm sure I've seen something, a small British movie about Eric Liddell.
Mm.
Yeah, cool.
But no,
Megan
but
the
no
Devil-
American, like Angel Studios is making movies like that. Why? You know. So that's my point.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh well, another. Well, this doesn't this doesn't change anything. But I think they're kind of experimenting with all sorts of different things. They had the what was that called? The King of Kings, the animated movie.
Sure.
I thought that was a step in a different direction, a fully animated film. They had a lot of big actors involved with that. That was encouraging for me to see that many, like recognizable actors interested in getting involved. Even Mark Hamill, which I'm not exactly sure why he'd be interested, but good for him. But they also have another film coming out that I'm very interested in called Zero AD. And it's about what is it, King Herod?
That one actually looks really cool.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
so
this
that
is
looks different.
that is an interesting. So what on the surface, it's not interesting because it's just a biblical story they're telling. However, when you look deeper, it's an aspect. I'm presuming that the storyline is going to take place while Christ is still a child, because it's you got Jim Caviezel playing Herod. Okay, and he's in makeup. That's an interesting aspect unto itself. But how do you make a storyline about this character? Which reading that portion of Matthew in what Herod was doing at the time, and how he was saying things that he didn't mean, and he came from an existence and a background that was very dichotomous, relationship there. But what they end up doing could be interesting because it's not something that's stereotypically explored in terms of having a whole movie there. I had a discussion actually during it wasn't on camera. It was a fireside chat. It was a bonfire, but with a group of people, right? I talked about, what if they did an adaptation of the Moses storyline in which, and I haven't seen a movie do this, because the biblical account is that Aaron, his brother, was the voice. He was the one that was making the speeches. It wasn't Moses. So to have this clash of brother to brother, in that Moses is the leader, yes, and he's directing all of these events, but Aaron is the one who is the mouthpiece, essentially. And they have this dysfunctional history of Moses was in Egypt, life of privilege. Aaron didn't have that. What does that look like? What does that look like? That kind of thing.
There you go.
Angel Studios, are you listening?
Come on,
I know you've peeked in on Brawler's streams
That was
before.
awesome. Yeah, that was cool. That was awesome. Yeah, please listen, Angel Studios. Be receptive. Good feedback. May the Texan says, "What is the next war movie on the docket for a live stream?" Me, Box Office Brawler. Not sure. Kyle, I think we need to break the silence of what's happening next week. We have big news. Kyle.
Whoa. Who have you told aside from me?
I've only told my parents. Yeah, so this is pretty exciting. Next Tuesday night, or next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, we're not going to be talking about a war movie. We're going to be talking about aliens. And we have the pleasure of being joined by Critical Drinker and Random Film Talk. So it's going to be all four of us, and I'm very excited to have them on. And
Fantastic.
it's that's going to be awesome. I'm really excited to talk about aliens. They both rave about that movie, and I haven't seen it yet, and I'm going to watch it a few times before that because I want to be.
You didn't see it, huh?
I know. I need to see it. I'm going to watch it before it's too late. And of course, I can't wait to get into that. So please be sure to mark your calendars for that one, everybody. But I think that pretty much concludes the stream. Thank you all for for joining us here today and watching us. Please make sure to check out everybody's channels here. All these guys are great. I appreciate their time coming on. Check out Kyle Corwith. He's going to be back on again next Tuesday at 5 p.m. So that'll be a real privilege to have him back on. And check out his channel. Make sure to look at what he's got going on this weekend, talking about warfare with a veteran. That's pretty cool. So check that out. And then Inside Man. Do you have a channel, Inside Man? Because I wanted to put you in my bio, but I couldn't find your channel anywhere.
I'm kind of working on it at the moment. So the unfortunate thing is I don't have a great deal of time on my hands. So but I'm kind of guesting here and there. So on Friday, I'm on the Northern English Bastards channel. And we're talking about dog soldiers.
Nice. Cool. You mentioned that a few times today. So make sure
Yeah.
to check that out, everybody. We all love the Northern English Bastard. So be sure to check that out. Make sure you give Inside Man some love. And then World War Joe, of course, always great having him on the channel. Be sure to sub to him, check out his stuff. And Cam the Movie Man. He's another Gen Z patron, and he makes some great YouTube shorts. I don't ever look at anyone's YouTube shorts. I don't like YouTube shorts. That's like his primary thing, but he does a great job with it. And I always love seeing his updates. So give him some support, give him some subs, check out his content. I think you're going to enjoy what he has to offer. But at the end of the day, we appreciate you all for joining us here today. If you liked what we had to say, please make sure to leave us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Cheers.